So, hey Neil, welcome to
Right.
today's perfect session. Today's session is all about success. So, welcome to today's success story interview.
Yeah. Thank you.
Firstly, congrats on scoring a 750. As you know, it is a 750 score puts you in the top 2 percentile, and it's a very significant achievement, especially given your journey. You started at a 610. I remember, I saw your account stats. You started at a 610. October 2021 is when you started with us.
Yeah.
All the way till March, where you took your, I believe that was your first attempt, am I right?
Yeah.
That was your first attempt, not a great attempt. It went to 650. And then from 650 in March to 750 by May 10th, that's practically 45 or 50 days. And that's a 100-point improvement overall. And if I'll just look at verbal, V27 to V40 is a massive improvement. So first things first, I really wanted to congratulate you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, and this is not just from me. This is from Rajat, Payal, and all of us at e-GMAT. We're very happy to have you here. So, first question: how does it feel having gone through this grind and this entire journey of GMAT?
Yeah, it feels great because it's been a long time. So I did start in October. I did take a break in the middle, I think December and January, but still, but still I did start in October, and it is a long time since then. So yeah, getting a 750 or seeing that on the screen on that day was a different feeling. And like it makes you feel satisfied, like more than ever before.
Oh yeah. Especially when you put in the kind of hard work to see the hard work being validated on that screen. I know it's a magical feeling, right?
Yeah.
So the objective of this interview is to understand those principles that work for you, because you never know. You're putting all this into a virtuous cycle. Somebody else might benefit from your story. So the first thing I really wanted to understand was your background. What is it that you've been doing? Why is it that you thought GMAT is the way to go, and what are you actually looking for? Why did you decide on GMAT? So
sure. So I'm in United States currently, and I came to US in 2017 to do my master's in environmental engineering. And I started working with a consulting firm, which is a technical consulting in environmental field, which in 2019. And last year, I decided that I wanted to get into more of the managerial positions or more of the client development roles in my company. And I thought even with this company or even with any other company or a smaller company, because this is a very huge company, Stantec, that I'm with. So I might want to get into a smaller company or a role where I can lead more projects or get more projects to the company. So that is when I decided that MBA might be very helpful in doing that. Not only developing leadership, but also developing the entrepreneurial skills or the proper managerial or consultant skills that I would require if I want to go into a sort of a startup or a smaller firm and just develop that firm or to get it to the level where Stantec is right now. So yeah, that was a motivation behind it. And that's when I started working, like thinking about GMAT. And I think I started in around August or September last year. And then I came to know about e-GMAT. I think I watched a few videos as well where people were talking about, like, I guess one of these interviews.
So you saw some of our success story interviews.
Yeah, I did.
Like this one. All right.
Yeah.
So e-GMAT was your first option in this case.
Yes.
Got it.
I saw it on LinkedIn and YouTube, I think. And then I contacted Rajat on LinkedIn.
Yeah. So I think your correspondence with us started in September. So I was checking through the mail trail. You started talking with us in September and you became a student in October. And if I broadly look at your GMAT preparation journey, there are like 2 phases to it. In fact, 3 phases to it, if I include that break portion. So October, November, I can see your stats. You've been furiously studying with a lot of fervor. Then I think in December, you took a bit of a break. And then you came back in Jan. You worked very hard. I could see all those activities in our internal metrics and all that. And then you took the exam in March. And that attempt did not go well. And that's where phase 2 starts. So let's talk about that initial journey from October to March. In your own words, what did you observe? What did you learn? Just give us a
so initially in October, I had a call with I don't remember his name, but yeah, he explained me what the whole platform is about and how should I be using it, making my customized plan, first of all. and then following that plan to give my GMAT around January. I think that was my target initially, but then I took a break and it extended further. But yeah, so that's how I started preparing, and then I started with mathematics like quant before verbal, and I thought I can get it out of the way since I had some confidence in quant. So that's how.
If I may ask, this is also an important point for students about what to start with between quant and verbal. So your logic for choosing quant was, it's my comfort area. Let me get it. Let me get it fixed. Let me get it out of the way, so then I can focus on verbal. So that was your logic.
Yeah.
Got it.
And also it gets me like well equipped with the platform as well. So it was easier to start with quant than with verbal.
Got it.
And I also wanted verbal to be at the end, so it's closer to the exam. I have all things fresh in my mind, all the things that I learned in the platform.
Got it. The reason I emphasized on this point is sometimes students go the other way as well, and it works for some students. Some people, quant is very comfortable, and they want to start with verbal because while you have the most energy, I want to do verbal.
Sure.
Let
that makes sense.
Bring verbal to a certain level, then I'll come to my comfort area. So the core point here is that both approaches work. You have to figure out what works for you. So obviously you took a good decision there with your preparation. So you got quant out of the way. Continue.
Right. So I think that ended in December or January. I think I took a lot of time on quant, even though I knew, because there were some things that help you to, do things quicker, which were on the platform. I mean, I could solve those problems given more time, but that's not the case with GMAT. So yeah, I tried to learn those things, try to learn those, not shortcuts, but just basic formulas maybe, but just basic stuff that this is the basic maths behind it. So it processes quickly in your mind. So that's how I got ahead with that. And then I started with verbal in January. And that took me around another 1.5 months or so. So February mid, I was done with that too. And then I gave one more mock test on e-GMAT, and I scored, I think, a 670 or a 680. So I did see an improvement from 610 initially, but not a major one, but still a good one. And I think even after that, I just looked at the mistakes that I made, but never wrote it down or never made a proper note that this is the part where I am making the error or something like that. So error log basically. And I think that's one of my major mistakes in the first attempt.
So when you reached out to us after the first attempt, I went through the video that Rajat made for you. I saw the initial correspondence. So I've actually written it down because I think it's important to deliberate on this, because this is where all the magic has come from. Rajat's exact observation at that point was, yes, talented student, but has not done the error log, has cleared medium cementing all across the board. Whether I look at quant, whether I look at verbal, medium cementing is done. So there is a certain ability that's proven. That's why we kind of have the belief that, yes, the ability is there. It just needs a certain, touch of refinement. Then we looked at hard. RC was through, but then we saw SC and CR is not there yet. So, and then we realized that, no, you have not done the error log module. And therefore, the hypothesis was it's likely because Neel has not focused on error log. Now, I'm not sure you've followed the GMAT blogosphere, but almost every GMAT expert, e-GMAT or otherwise, nowadays talks about error log. Like, error log is something you have to do. The higher level refinements typically come from error log. So I believe what Rajat told you was that, right? Please continue.
Yeah, because I did solve like a lot of questions, and I almost used all of the questions on e-GMAT before March.
Yes.
Like by March, I was done with like 80 or 90% of it, and that was not helpful at all. Doing less questions is fine, but making the error log on the mistakes that you make in those questions is the key to get a good score, because that is how you improve and not by solving more questions. That is what I learned from my first attempt.
I wish we could frame this somewhere and keep it as a reminder for all students. Because I'm advising students every day, and this is something that I have to emphasize again and again. It's anybody can solve 1,000 questions. The person who solves 100 questions but learns from those 100 questions has a much better chance. So I think that learning happened for you at this point. So I think Rajat asked you to first go through the error log modules. Then he asked you to redo the application and practice files. And again, this is also something that when I interact with students, the same point comes up. Students sometimes ask this question: why do you redo the question? I already know the answers, so what's the point in redoing? So in your own words, what happened when you redid these questions? Is there something that
so exactly what you said. When you look at those questions, you know that you have done them before. You might, some of the questions you might actually know the exact answer that you want to mark, but that's not the reason why you do it. The reason why you do it is to follow the process that e-GMAT has shown you before you start with the application files. You know the process, but you're not applying it. So that's what happened with me. For example, let's say CR, or let's emphasize on pre-thinking. If I look at a question and I know it's an easy question, so I mark the answer, because you don't necessarily need to pre-think if it's an easy question. But when it gets to the difficult questions, it becomes very difficult to solve them without pre-thinking, because you give like 3-4 minutes and you might solve it, but that's not what GMAT is about. So you have to, the pre-thinking part eliminates all the time that you have to give to those options. You're just reading through those options again and again. So pre-thinking was one of the things that, or not pre-thinking just that, but all the SC, CR and RC, just following the process of reading the question well, understanding the question well, and then solving it is what changed. Because even in RC, I was doing well, and suddenly in the first attempt, I did not do well at all.
Yes.
I don't remember. It was a very low score.
Yeah. We were also surprised when we saw that score, because your ability was not reflected there.
Right. Yeah, because that's what happened. I think I just panicked and did not read the passage well. I just tried to do it quicker rather than do it well. So I just did not read so giving time to the reading the passage is more important than just reading the questions. Way more important.
Absolutely.
So that's what happened while doing the applications again.
So when you redid this application and practice files, you saw the gaps in your process. So this is kind of what the error log is actually meant for. So when you talk about looking back at the questions and reflecting on your questions, of course, there are conceptual nuggets that you'll pick up. But beyond the process, this error log was meant to be behavioral. I think at this point, you understood that. And let me tell you, we tell this to a lot of students, but not everybody is able to absorb that and actually modify their behaviors. Now, the reason Rajat gave you a timeline of 30 to 45 days with that plan was, behavior is not a 1 day, 2 day fix. It takes a certain amount of time. Like typically anything 21 days to form a behavioral pattern. So that's why it's not a 2 day fix. So you did a fantastic job absorbing those lessons, figuring out the behavioral aspects. So in CR, for example, you're talking about pre-thinking. What was the behavioral problem? Whether that you were skipping pre-thinking or something else? Can you elaborate a little bit?
So initially, when I read the question and you just think of an assumption, I know that is pre-thinking, but if it's a simple question, you just think of it. It's not like you have to sit and think about it or read the conclusion again and think about it. But when it gets to the difficult questions, you have to focus on what you're reading and have to focus on the conclusion and the reason given for that conclusion. So that helps you in pre-thinking. And what I found out is, even if I don't pre-think of the exact answer that is given in the options, what pre-thinking does is it opens you to understanding the passage so well that you can eliminate options very easily and get to the right answer. So pre-thinking is not, pre-thinking is not just to get you the exact answer in those options, but it is to understand the passage better than ever. And that is what saves time as well as gets you those right answers.
So in essence, what you're saying is those, few seconds, it's not like you're doing pre-thinking for minutes. It's a few seconds, like 10, 15 seconds. I'd say. It's like those 10, 15 seconds that you're spending on pre-thinking. It's deepening your understanding of the argument to such a level that answer choice analysis becomes easier, irrespective of whether, your pre-thought idea is there or not. That's the...
Before that, if it was a hard question, I used to read the choices 2 to 3 times. Which is a waste of time because you don't get those answers right if you have to read it 2 to 3 times.
Got it. So essentially, you totally embraced the idea of the error log. You started, figuring out behaviorally what are those small chinks that in your arbor. You were fixing all those SC, CR, RC one at a time. Then when you reached out to me, that's when I got into the correspondence. Till then was Rajat's this one. At that point, you came to me with your results from OG Advanced. We had to improvise a little bit because you had already exhausted.
Yeah, I used all of it.
So as Rajat said in the video, like, this is not an ideal situation, but not something we have not seen before. Like, yes, students do this all the time. And again, that's a lesson for other e-GMAT students as well. Look, there are always workarounds, So you took OG Advanced, you took the hard questions in OG Advanced, and you came to me saying that, hey, I'm getting 75%. So that for me was a very, very positive sign, because OG Advanced is supposed to be hard questions. The only thing I asked you is, what is the sample size? Because that's important. Out of 5 questions.
And it does not have a lot of questions.
Yes. So, and when the sample size consideration was, taken into account, at that point, we already had the feeling that you were primed for success. I remember the question that you asked at that point. And again, I'm coming to this because the last mile guidance, the last mile aspect is also very important. What is it that you should be doing in those last few days? In your own words, I want to understand what is it that you did in those last 1-2 weeks before the exam, so that other students also understand what it takes to get that kind of score.
Yeah, so once I was at solving, I think, 20 odd questions of the OG Advanced for each of the sections, like CR, RC, and SC, I was of the opinion that I should either one contact you. So I thought of giving one test and then contact you. So I gave one test so that I have more data for you to analyze. So then I emailed you saying that this is what going on. And so then I decided, so I was confused if I should just give the test sooner or should take more time and, study more to be sure that this is what I'm getting. But I think you said that since you are in that zone and you are doing really well, you should go for the earlier date. So that's when I think I had 2 weeks to prepare, as you said. So in those 2 weeks, what my goal was to give a couple of more tests, just to be in that zone, as well as just to make sure that I have it's not just that I got 760, 740 something in that first test was not a fluke, but it was out of understanding and knowing that this is what I can do.
I think that's why we also did one more mock, right? Just to be sure. Before we decided to fix the exam date, I think we asked you to take another test. The principle was the same. One mock is just a data point. One more, it gives you a sense of confidence that yes, this is replicable. Yeah, please carry on.
Yeah, correct. And so that was one of the things. And the other things were just to, I think in the first GMAT and my first attempt in March, the week before, I think I gave 2 mocks in 1 week. The week before the exam, I had my exam on Friday. I gave 2 mocks within the 7 days. I practiced like a lot of questions because I was not doing well on my mock. So I just thought of practicing more questions will give me more idea of what to do. And that's not true. So what I did in those 2 weeks in the second attempt was to focus on my error log that I had made in the last 1.5 months. So I had, I think, 50 to 55 questions in SC in my error log. So that's a lot of questions to go through. It takes like 2.5 hours, but that's okay. Just giving one whole day to it was also very valuable to me. So that's one of the things. Same for CR and same for RC. Making an error log for RC, I think it is a bit difficult as compared to SC and CR. But I still had proper analysis of which question. I think I was making a lot of problems with my inference questions. So I focused on those more, and again kept reading on what kind of mistakes I made in the last 2 weeks. So error log reading was the main focus. And then solving some questions, just to like 5 to 10 questions a day, just to be in that zone and just to have your mind set at practicing those. And since I had not done a lot of quant in the last 1.5 months, I started doing 15 to 20 questions of those, so that I do not miss out on getting what I can get in quant. So yeah, those were the last 2 weeks.
I think you raised a very important point that again, something that I see some students forget. Okay, when you're focusing so much in one subsection or even one section is verbal, sometimes, especially if you have this extremely comfortable view of quant, that quant is very, very strong for me. You tend to forget quant, ignore quant. I think you were cautious in making sure that you stayed in touch with quant as well. Because I've seen,
because I did not want a situation where I get a V40 and then I end up with like 40 or skip 45
exactly
or something. That I would not do.
So that again, for people who are listening to this interview, very valuable advice. Don't just ignore quant or verbal, whichever your strong area is. In those last days, you need to stay in touch with that as well.
You need to stay in touch with all of the subsections of everything that is going to be on that test. I also did IR and AWA in the last 2 weeks.
Absolutely.
So that was another thing. And I think I had Q50 throughout all my mocks that I have given. And you suggested me to go through the geometry part of things on the e-GMAT platform and then practice a few more geometry questions. I guess that could be the reason I shifted from Q50 to Q51. So thank you for that.
That may be true. I mean, we would never know unless we look at the questions. But I actually checked your stats before you went and took the exam. I could see that your geometry had also moved upwards. So I knew that you had taken the feedback and you had worked on it. So fingers crossed, we were all very expectant that 740, 750 something should come. Because again, it takes a certain diligence to once a pain point or once a weak point has been identified, to sit and diligently attack and make sure that takes a certain amount of diligence to do that also. It's not easy. So I'm happy, because even before the exam I had seen that you had looked at geometry, so I was like, okay. So I wasn't sure whether Q51 would happen, but I was reasonably sure that exactly. But I was reasonably sure that unless you have a bad day, Q50 definitely should happen.
Correct.
So, Q51 was great. He scored the full Monty, which is great.
The OG advanced maths is quite difficult, is what I would say. If people are going to use it and if they get a 70%, then you are good. It is difficult. As compared to what comes in the actual.
Absolutely. The OG marks do tend to be slightly on the easier side in general, right? So I think that also we discussed in our correspondence. Right? You have to always take that with a pinch of salt.
Right.
Right. So it's good. I think for people who are listening to this interview, I think there are quite a few points of interest. Some things about what you did in the last week, very, very interesting. How you did, unlike the last time, this time you did not go overboard. You did not tire yourself out. You focused on your error log, and even that V27. Actually, it's not V27 because your ability was V33. You underperformed. You had a bit of anxiety on the actual exam. So I would say it's V33 to V40. In those 45 days.
I think RC is the reason for that.
Yeah, exactly. And RC were already there. So it was only a question of doing that.
Sorry, I can't hear you.
Give me one sec. Can you hear me now?
Yeah,
I got disconnected for a second. So one last question to wrap up this interview is, now you have gone through this journey and you have achieved something that practically just 2% of the test taking population is able to achieve. So any advice, let's say your top 3 bits of advice for GMAT aspirants out there? Whatever comes to mind.
I think for most of the people, it might be a long process. For some, it might come easy because they are good at either quant or verbal or both of them. So that might be easy for some of them, but for many of them, it might be a difficult process. So just be diligent with it and be true to yourself, because if you don't analyze what you do and you don't know where you are faltering, or you don't, just keep telling yourself that you can do better, that does not work. You need to tell yourself that this is where you're faltering and this is where you need to improve. So work on those rather than just solving more questions. I think just doing the error log and working through each of them, like each of the mistakes that you make, will definitely help you get over the 700 mark easily. And second thing I would say is, I don't know if people opt e-GMAT. I think many of them do, but I would definitely suggest everyone to do that. Not because they have good questions, they do. I think e-GMAT had more difficult questions than even the OG advanced that I had to use in the end. And even the mocks are difficult. So that's true, but just the initial understanding or initial videos that help you understand each and every subsection of quant or verbal, they are very, very good. The IR also is very good. I did not find any other source where I could have so many IR questions. So that was very helpful. And I want to give a big shout out to Rajat, because I gave my mock on Friday. I did not expect anyone to reply on the weekend. And Rajat did send me a video on Saturday night, which is incredible, because I would have had a very bad weekend if I had not heard from him. So I looked at that video and started from Monday itself. And so I'm very, very glad for that happened. And yeah, let's say those two things. Other than that, yeah, just rigorous and being true to yourself is very important.
Great. So for everybody who's listening, make sure that you do error log. I think that's one of the shining points that have come through out of this one.
And yeah, I know people hear it from everywhere, and still I did not do it. I did see a lot of videos of this sort, and people were telling me, please do the error log. There were videos on e-GMAT platform which said do the error log, and I still did not do it as efficiently as I should have. I did have a few notes where I pinpointed some things that I am making mistakes in, but still just the way that e-GMAT suggests you make it, that helps you focus on particular areas where you need to focus, not only subsections, but areas within the subsection. So yeah, that's very helpful. So please do it.
So I think that it's great to hear all this. So Neel, I really wish you the very best. So I'm sure you have a lot of admissions related work happening at this point, and you're targeting round ones and all that. So all the best to you.
And lastly, thank you to you too.
Oh, sure. I think that's okay.
Yeah, two things. You revived my confidence back in RC, that I was doing it well before and I would continue to do well based on your videos as well. And secondly, just helping me to prep for those last 2 weeks where you did help me a lot. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Like I said, it's maybe 30% our guidance, but it's 70% it's what you do. So
yeah, but 30% is very important.
Yeah, you have to be a really strong, diligent student who puts in the effort to get the reward. So you proved that to yourself and to everybody else also. So thanks a lot for being a student. Thanks a lot for this interview. I'm sure that for those people who are listening to this, it will not just serve as inspiration, but you also gave some useful nuggets which I hope get internalized by many students, not just e-GMAT students, students worldwide.
Anyone.
So thanks a lot, Neel. All the best for your future endeavors, and
thank you so
that's
much.
It. Goodbye.
Thank you.